suggested is hernia. Okay. Now, this hernia topic is very important for knowledge, for examination purpose, for theory, for clinical, for viva, and for day-to-day practice for a surgeon. So first of all, today I will discuss about most of the theoretical aspect, not the clinical, practical ward finding. If time permits, yes. Now, first thing is definition of hernia. The hernia, most of you might have idea of this definition, but many times examiner asks you definition of hernia. So definition of hernia is protrusion of a viscous or part of a viscous. Protrusion of a viscous or part of a viscous through a defect or weakness, through a defect or weakness in the wall. So first portion of the definition is protrusion of a viscous or a part of a viscous. This is one part. Second part is through a defect or weakness in the wall of its cavity contained. So definition has three parts. One is protrusion of a viscous or a part of a viscous, number one. Through a defect or a weakness in the wall, this is second part. From its wall of its cavity contained. The meaning is hernia occurs when there is a cavity and the cavity has some content. For example, abdominal hernia, because abdominal hernia is most common. So abdomen is a cavity and there is a wall of the abdominal cavity. So in this wall, there can be a defect or a weakness through which the content of the cavity protrudes out. This is called hernia. So again, I am repeating, hernia can be defined as protrusion of a viscous or a part of a viscous through a weakness or defect in the wall of its cavity contained. Okay? This is the definition of hernia. Now, all of you must have heard this word hernia. So when you talk of hernia, literally the first thing goes in mind is inguinal hernia, because the reason is out of the total hernia, inguinal hernia is most common. Now, out of the total 100 cases of hernia every time, because hernia is of various types. This types depends upon the site of the defect or site of the weakness. Inguinal hernia means the defect or weakness is in the inguinal region. That's why it is called inguinal hernia. So there are many more types of hernia. For example, after inguinal hernia, next is ventral hernia. What is ventral hernia? Ventral hernia is herniation occurs through the anterior abdominal wall from jiffy sternum to pubic symphysis. This is ventral part. So from Giffey-Sternum to the pubic symphysis, any herniation called ventral hernia. In this ventral hernia, the ventral aspect has some division, like any herniation occurs below the Giffey-Sternum, that is area called epigastrium. Epigastrium. So if herniation occurs in the epigastric region, it is called epigastric hernia. If herniation occurs around the umbilicus, it is called para-umbilical hernia. If herniation occurs through the umbilical defect, it is called umbilical hernia. And below umbilicus, same, ventral hernia. So these are the subdivisions. Now, inguinal hernia, many times, many surgeons, they use the word groin hernia. Groin. The term groin means, the meaning of a groin is, inguinal means there is an inguinal region. We know in our body, face, head, back of the neck, front of the neck, chest, front, back, likewise, abdomen, pelvis, front, back. The groin means a groove. Groin means a groove between abdomen and thighs. A groove between abdomen and thigh is called groin. So any swelling occurs here, they are called groin hernia. And here the demarcation line is inguinal ligament. Inguinal ligament. So above the inguinal ligament, this inguinal hernia usually occurs above the inguinal ligament. Some hernia occurs below the inguinal ligament, like femoral hernia or obturator hernia. These are rare hernia, less common hernia. So the meaning is, most of the groin hernia, the site is specific. What is that site? Groin means above or below the inguinal ligament. They are included in the groin hernia. So groin hernia includes inguinal hernia, femoral hernia, obturator hernia, all the rare hernia. So out of the total hernia, most common is inguinal hernia. That is 80%. Out of 100 cases of hernia, 80% is inguinal. So whenever hernia comes, first thing goes in mind is inguinal hernia. Now, there are many other types of hernia. So we will discuss today first about inguinal hernia. Now, coming straightway to the inguinal hernia. Now, this inguinal hernia, cause of hernia. Why hernia occurs? I have already told you, defect or weakness. So this defect is mostly congenital. Defect is mostly congenital and weakness is acquired. Weakness is acquired. Audio is clear? Hello, Shashi?
Yes, sir. Clear आ रहे हैं आवाज?
ठीक है चलो. Okay. Cause of hernia is defect or weakness. Defects, most of the cases, defects are congenital in origin. They present since birth, but this defect may not have allowed the herniation till many years. So in practical life, during practice, most of the hernia, out of the total hernia, most of the hernia, they are young age or adult or old age. So defect may have remained silent, and because of excess age or because of some precipitating factor at advanced age, this defect gives way the protrusion. The meaning is, I will come to the point about this defect. And weakness is usually acquired. Weakness in the covering layer. Most of these cases, covering layers are outside in the abdominal cavity. The innermost layer is peritoneum, and outermost layer is skin. So in between the skin and peritoneum, there are layers. The most important layer is deep fascia, and below the deep fascia, there are 3 layers of abdominal wall muscles. 3 layers: external oblique, internal oblique, and transverse abdominis. 3 layers of muscle. So in the anterior abdominal wall, these muscles are distributed differently at different sites. Somewhere it is in muscle fiber, somewhere it is in the aponeurotic form, these muscles. So again, at the site of aponeurosis, external oblique aponeurosis, internal oblique aponeurosis, transversus abdominis aponeurosis, like that. So these are the sites of weakness, where there is transition from muscle fibers to the aponeurotic fibers. This is the transition zone. Where is the weak point? The next is weakness may be because of defect in muscle fiber. Like some patient might have disease where the collagen fiber, maturation fiber is abnormal. Collagen synthesis is abnormal. Mature collagen fibers are lacking. This may be, this collagen disorder may be, most of the time they are congenital in origin, but this may be acquired. For example, obesity, smoking, they are acquired causes of herniation. How? Because of weakness. So obesity, they produce muscle weakness, yes, but these are all theories. There are studies in many countries. They say no, herniation, if the obesity is a cause of hernia, muscle weakness, then all the obese persons should have hernia at any time of lifetime, any part of lifetime. No, this is not common. So again, the point comes to the inherited congenital defect. Now, smoking has been proved, almost proved, that it impairs in collagen synthesis and collagen maturation. So adult or old age, hernia is slightly more common in smokers because of muscle weakness. So these are the possible cause. Another possible cause in clinical discussion, you might have heard many patients, you are asking precipitating factor, that is increase in intra-abdominal pressure. You are asking constipation, where the patient has habit of straining during defecation, and this straining leads to rise in intra-abdominal pressure for expulsion of the fecal matter. So this straining again may be a precipitating factor. Yes. Straining during defecation and straining during micturition. So prostatic enlargement may be a cause of precipitating factor of hernia in old age, adult age. So these are the possible cause. Again, this straining has many thoughts, many research from the many countries shows if the straining is a precipitating factor for the development of hernia, then every weightlifter or sports person should have much more common incidence of hernia. So this is not like this. So all these are theories, not proved. So in weightlifters, it is not been seen that hernia is a common illness. So again, these are all possible risk factor, and again, the weakness in the fascia or the muscle may be congenital or may be acquired. This is about the in gross theories of causes of development of hernia. Now coming to inguinal hernia. Inguinal hernia basically is of two types, direct and indirect. This inguinal hernia occurs through the inguinal canal. So in the lowermost part of the anterior abdominal wall, all of you must have this idea, there is an inguinal canal, one on either side, right and left. One on either side, inguinal canal. Now in this inguinal canal, you must have read in anatomy, this has floor, roof, anterior wall, posterior wall, and it has two openings. One is deep inguinal ring and other is superficial inguinal ring. Deep inguinal ring is also called internal inguinal ring, and superficial inguinal ring is also called external inguinal ring. And between the two rings, there is a canal. This canal has an average length in adult. In adult, average length is about 3.5 to 4 centimeter, hardly. So average length is 3.5 centimeter. So it has two openings. Internal opening or deep ring is a defect in fascia transversalis. Now, what is this fascia transversalis? Fascia transversalis is a layer in the anterior abdominal wall just outside the peritoneum. Just outside the peritoneum. And outside this, there are three muscles or aponeurosis. So this internal inguinal ring or deep inguinal ring is a defect in fascia transversalis. Now, the canal in adult is obliquely placed. It is placed obliquely like this on the two sides. Oblique, just above the inguinal canal, rather parallel to the, just above and parallel to the inguinal ligament. Above and parallel to the inguinal ligament. These are the two inguinal canal on the two sides, like this. It has this lower part is external ring or superficial ring, and upper part is deep ring or internal inguinal ring. Upper part is deep ring, lower part is superficial ring. And in between the two rings, there is a canal. Deep ring is a defect in fascia transversalis, and superficial ring is a defect in external oblique aponeurosis. External oblique aponeurosis. Deep ring has a shape of almost a circular or round shape. Round shape. Superficial ring is of V shape like this. See, V shape. If you compare the patient in anatomical position, this is the shape of the external ring or superficial inner ring. These are the upper part and this is the lower part. This is the lower part. So in most of the patient, one can feel the superficial inguinal ring. This is the defect in external oblique aponeurosis, V shape. Sorry. See, this is like this, V. Now, about this opening and canal. Now, as I have told you, this canal runs from lateral to medial. Through this canal, the structure of the inguinal canal is spermatic cord, through which the testis developed in the lumbar area in the intrauterine life, in the developmental life, during the development. Testis develops at the level of lumbar area, and they descend down through a path, and path is definite. And here the testis descends down through this canal, and ultimately at birth the testis comes down in the scrotum. And during development, a developmental process called processus vaginalis. This processus vaginalis is nothing but a protrusion of a portion of the peritoneum. Protrusion of a portion of the peritoneum. And why the testis brings this peritoneum down for descent? Because testis development is extraperitoneal, outside the peritoneal cavity. The development of testis is at the level of lumbar region, outside the peritoneum. It is not an intraperitoneal organ. So as the testis develops outside the peritoneum, in the back, and it has to come to the front and reach to the scrotum, testis. So develops here, travels a path, goes anteriorly, down and medially. And this testis, during development, during descent, it pulls a pouch of peritoneum, what is called processus vaginalis. After the testis reaches to the scrotum, this processus vaginalis, what is fold of peritoneum, sometimes fails to obliterate. Normally, this fold of peritoneum, that is processus vaginalis, gets obliterated after birth. But sometimes it remains patent, and it leaves a tunnel from the peritoneal cavity up to the scrotum. Now, if there is a tunnel, and this is the cause of inguinal hernia, then why it does not appear in childhood? Why the inguinal hernia, indirect inguinal hernia appears in about 40 years, 50 years? So there is a reason. So indirect inguinal hernia means those hernia which develops or comes out, protrusion occurs through the deep ring, through the canal, through the superficial ring, and finally into the scrotum. This is called indirect inguinal hernia. Means the content has passed through the deep ring, inguinal canal, and superficial ring. This is indirect. And what is direct hernia? Direct hernia is weakness in the posterior wall of the inguinal canal. If this is inguinal canal, the posterior wall of the inguinal canal, there is weakness, and abdominal content is pushed into the canal through the superficial ring. It comes out into the scrotum. This is called direct hernia. So direct hernia is through the weakness in the posterior wall. Indirect hernia is through the deep ring. Now, what I was talking about causes of indirect inguinal hernia. If in most of the cases, indirect inguinal hernia, there is a preformed sac, and this preformed sac is always congenital. This sac cannot develop acquired or later in life. So there is a consensus that in indirect hernia, the sac is preformed, congenital in origin, means the processus vaginalis fails to obliterate, and because of some factors or some protective mechanism up to 30 years, up to 40 years, the Sutter mechanism at the deep ring remains functional and abdominal content fails to come down. Abdominal content fails to come down. But indirect hernia, there is always a preformed sac. Means persistence of the processus vaginalis. The meaning is, grossly you can say, the indirect hernia usually a congenital hernia. It may develop at 50 years of age. So, what factors prevents the development of indirect hernia in first 20 years of life, 30 years of life, 40 years of life, and why the indirect hernia appears at the 60 years of age, 55 years of age? The reason is, I have already told you, the inguinal canal traverses from deep ring to superficial ring. Deep ring is a defect in fascia transversalis. Superficial ring is a defect in external oblique aponeurosis. The meaning is, between the two openings, here is the deep ring, here is the superficial ring, below. This is up and this is below. The layers of the anterior abdominal wall means, here the defect is deep ring, this is a defect in fascia transversalis. And outside this, there is transversus abdominis, there is internal oblique, there is external oblique. And here, the superficial ring is a defect in external oblique. The meaning is, there is a setter mechanism, means the deep ring, after the deep ring, the canal is being compressed by the external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis. So this is called Sutter mechanism. And as the age advances, if the muscle becomes weak, the canal remains open. The Sutter mechanism fails, and the intra-abdominal pressure pushes the content through a weak canal and herniation occurs. This is the theory of herniation. Other theory is, there are some plug formation or condensation of tissue formation at the deep ring. Even if the canal is processus vaginalis is patent, sac is preformed, still the patient may not have developed hernia because the deep ring is very tight. It is being occluded by some condensation of fibrofatty tissue. So these are all theories why indirect hernia, if it is preformed sac, if there is persistent processus vaginalis, so why it has not developed in earlier part of the life. This is the reason. On the other hand, in the newborn children, this indirect hernia is most common. Newborn and children, they do not develop direct hernia. So most of the hernia in infant and children, they are indirect hernia. They do not show direct hernia. This is the reason why this indirect inguinal hernia has a congenital theory. Congenital preformed sac. From where it forms? Persistence of processus vaginalis. This is the theory. Whereas direct, weakness in the posterior wall. So I think this is very clear to you. For your understanding, I have explained you in much more detail about the causes of herniation. Congenital causes, acquired causes. Now coming to, so hernia, inguinal hernia is direct or indirect. This is one. Now, next is, this is about the theories of development. Presentation. Most of these hernia present in later life, except after birth, congenital. Now, after this, there are various I think you may get a question, various types of inguinal hernia. This types is nothing but the various stages of hernia progression. Stages of hernia progression. They are actually the progression of hernia, established hernia. And many times you will get a question, what are other types of hernia? For example, these hernia, most of the patient, they know the diagnosis. Patient may come to you कि हमको hernia हो गया, they know. This is so popular. Yes? What is the typical presentation? Typical presentation is swelling. Most of the hernia, they present with swelling. Bulge in the groin. Swelling or bulge in the groin is most common presentation. This is one. Second is reducible swelling. Many patients will come and tell you that whenever I lie down flat, supine position, the swelling disappears. On standing or running or working or doing manual work, again the swelling appears. So the history alone gives you the diagnosis. The most common, most important presenting symptoms of hernia is swelling, which is reducible. Yes? Now, in the S. Das clinical method, when you will read the swelling has various characteristics. So swelling may be reducible or it may be compressible. Swelling may be reducible or may be compressible. So in compressibility, the swelling becomes less apparent or disappears on pressure and again reappears. In reducibility, the swelling may be reducible spontaneously or on manipulation. They are called reducible swelling. So here also, if the patient comes to you with swelling, and most of these swellings are painless. But remember, this painless swelling in the groin, which is reducible, this indicates uncomplicated hernia. So when hernial swelling progresses, it starts developing some complication, it develops many more symptoms. Long-standing hernia. But usually, uncomplicated hernia, long-standing hernia, the painless swelling, which is reducible. Now, this reducibility, many times patient comes to you and you are seeing the patient और पेशेंट ने तुमको हिस्ट्री दिया था कि साहब रात को जब सो जाते हैं तो स्वेलिंग खत्म हो जाता है. But during your examination, swelling does not disappear. It means you just ask the patient to manipulate कि हमको इसको अंदर डाल के दिखाओ. So first allow the patient to make it reducible. So this is called reducible on manipulation. Again, the swelling is reducible. Is it clear? So there is a corollary that many times the surgeon fails to reduce the swelling in hernia. And when the surgeon fails, patient feels ये डॉक्टर बेवकूफ है और उसने उठाया अपना हाथ लगाया और 1 मिनट में उसको अंदर डाल दिया. Because they have developed habit of reducing on manipulation from many years, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So it is always helpful that ask the patient to reduce the swelling. If not, then clinician should try for reduction. And most of the time, on gentle manipulation, the swelling reduced. This is called reducible hernia. And this is uncomplicated, painless. Now, this hernia sometimes develops or advanced stage or progression of the hernial swelling, what is called irreducible hernia. Many times you get a question, any other types? Yes, one is reducible, other is irreducible. Irreducible means the hernia fails to reduce back. This is called irreducible hernia. Now, sometimes this irreducible hernia, when reduction fails, even on manipulation, patient have some pain or discomfort, mild pain. Even in reducible hernia, many patients may have some discomfort or dragging sensation when there is a swelling, but they are painless. Irreducible may be painless or may be mild pain. Now, after irreducibility, there are other types. Other types are, first is reducible, second is irreducible, third is obstructed. Remember, reducible, irreducible, obstructed. Obstructed means, what is obstruction? Obstruction means the hernia is irreducible. But after irreducibility, obstruction means obstruction of the content, obstruction in the content. If the hernial sac contains the bowel loops, the small bowel loops, and this bowel loops in the hernial sac becomes irreducible, now this irreducibility may progress this bowel content into intestinal obstruction. So in this case, if the hernia has irreducibility and obstruction, the patient may have colicky abdominal pain, abdominal distension, vomiting, constipation, means all the features of intestinal obstruction. I think it is clear to you. Reducible hernia, irreducible hernia, obstructed hernia. Yes? Now, after obstructed, still, if it remains unrelieved and patient has abdominal distension, vomiting, pain, constipation, everything, if remains unrelieved, this obstructed and irreducible hernia, may progress to final stage of hernia, what is called strangulation. Here what happens? This strangulation means the content of the hernia, if it is intestine, it has suffered arrest of blood supply. Arrest of blood supply, and bowel becomes gangrenous. And this gangrenous bowel can lead to development of septicemia, toxemia, sepsis, and finally death if it is not treated in time. So again, coming to the basic issue, hernia may be reducible, may be irreducible, may be obstructed, may be strangulated. Now, very important, in between strangulation and obstruction, in between strangulation and obstruction, there is another term, what is called incarcerated. Incarcerated. This is fifth one. Again, I am repeating. Reducible hernia, irreducible hernia, obstructed hernia, incarcerated hernia, and strangulated hernia. These are the 5 types. All of you must remember. Examiner may ask you, what is this incarcerated? The term incarcerated is vague. Many authors have described separately. Till last decade, there was consensus about incarceration, word incarceration, that when the bowel content, what is the bowel content? Digested material or fecal matter. Yes? So fecal matter being trapped in the intestine, peristalsis is absent, the content of the intestine is not able to pass beyond, and this fecal mass produces schibulous mass. Fecal mass, large vowel में पढ़ोगे, then you will get this word schibulous mass. And because of this content, the bowel is irreducible, and patient may not have features of obstruction, may or may not have. Bowel is irreducible, and because of this incarcerated content of the intestine, patient may or may not have features of intestinal obstruction. This was old concept. Now, in recent edition of Bailey and Love, they say the term incarcerated is very confusing. There is no consensus. What is the meaning of incarcerated? I am talking about the recent edition of Bailey and Love. They say the term incarcerated, still we are not clear what is the meaning of incarceration. But they have written that, again I am coming, reducible hernia, irreducible hernia, obstructed hernia, incarcerated hernia, and strangulated hernia. So they say that progress of a hernial swelling, remember, progress of a hernial swelling after irreducibility and obstruction and before strangulation, that is gangrene and necrosis, are incarcerated. Is it clear? So this is confusing. So this is the type of hernia. Now, on clinical examination, diagnosis is not difficult. Diagnosis is very easy. Now, coming to the this investigation part, inguinal hernia. In most of the inguinal hernia, the diagnosis is established on clinical grounds alone. But if there is any doubt, or patient has came to you with a complaint of swelling, and on examination, yes, one more part. For this reducibility or examination of hernial swelling, one very important question or very important confusion I have seen in your immediate senior batch during the last exam. Please, you should not have any confusion. Every patient of hernia should be examined on supine position, lying down position. There is no confusion. Every patient of hernia first examined in supine, lying down position. Don't straightway examination, patient को नीचे उतार दिए. एग्जाम में हमने देखा है स्टूडेंट को, कहां से पढ़ा भाई, कहां लिखा हुआ है? First examine in lying down supine position. See the swelling. Ask the patient to cough if the swelling is not seen. If the swelling is not seen and patient has complained you regarding reducibility, ask the patient to cough. This is called cough impulse. And swelling will come out. So this is called positive cough impulse. And this cough impulse is, so you just keep your region on the inguinal region and you will see there is a swelling. First, it is of this type, then this, then this. So this swelling is expansile. Expansile. Ask the patient to cough repeatedly. First, the swelling is of this side, say 2 centimeter in diameter, then it becomes 4 centimeter in diameter, then it becomes 6 centimeter in diameter. It means the swelling expands. This is the meaning why the accurate word is expansile impulse on coughing. This hernial swelling has positive expansile impulse on coughing. Now, this positive expansile impulse can be seen or can be felt with the finger. Both. You can see the expansile impulse and you can feel the expansile impulse. So during inspection, positive. During palpation, again keep the finger over the side, reduce it, and again ask the patient to cough. You can feel the expansile impulse of coughing. Gradually the swelling comes out. So positive expansile impulse on coughing is a cardinal feature. Remember, cardinal feature of hernial swelling. Cardinal feature for inguinal hernia. Now, if on lying down the swelling does not come out, or on lying down swelling is not seen, then you have to adopt the upright posture of the patient. And when the patient adopts upside down, the swelling comes out easily. Or if the swelling is small, during lying down, you are not able to appreciate the accurate size, accurate consistency, accurate border, accurate temperature. You are not able to feel. Again, ask the patient to adopt upright posture and then you feel. Because what happens? The swelling, smaller swelling in lying down becomes larger in standing position. Not visible swelling in lying down position becomes visible in standing position. Otherwise, it is not mandatory to ask every patient. This I am saying you because most of the students, even smarter student, intelligent student, they have no concept. Hernia मतलब खड़े करके examine करना है. No, unless you know the region. What is the role of change in position? So lying down, not visible, then ask the patient to be standing position. Otherwise, you are not required to adopt the standing position of the patient. Positive expansile impulse on coughing, cardinal feature. Reducibility, painless, soft in consistency. Now, here, some parts of anatomy of the hernia. Some parts of anatomy for your understanding. In anatomy, I have already told you there is a defect, and defect occurs in the wall. Defect occurs in the wall of hernial sac. Suppose this is a wall, okay? This is the wall of the hernial sac. And here is a defect in the deep inguinal ring. So what happens? Through this defect, any intra-abdominal organ can be pushed outside and it is along the wall of the cavity. So there is always a outer covering of the peritoneum comes down. A covering of the peritoneum, and inside the covering there is content of the abdominal cavity. So this peritoneal covering is almost always present in hernia. This peritoneal covering. And this is called hernial sac. This is called hernial sac. Now this hernial sac, there is a word called component of hernia. That's why I am talking about anatomy. What are the components of hernia? Components are, there is a hernial sac, yes, of variable length. And in the hernial sac, there is one defect point or narrow point. This is called neck of the sac. So if this is a sac, here it is neck. That is point of defect. And here it becomes wide. Yes? And length is this much. Length is this much. So this is the neck of the hernial sac. This is the body of the hernial sac. And this is called fundus of the hernial sac. This portion is called fundus, rounded. This is the blind sac. This is hernial sac. This is nothing but the fold of peritoneum. And here the abdominal contents comes out and comes down, either the abdominal viscera or the omentum or whatever it is content. whatever the content is. This is the component of hernia. Hernial sac, neck, and fundus. Now, the constriction point or narrowest point is neck. Narrowest point is neck. Now, in case of indirect hernia, till now, the narrowest point is deep inguinal ring. Any confusion? Yes? Sasi? Are you clear? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there any confusion?
No, sir.
No. Okay.
No, sir.
So in the hernial sac, in the indirect hernia, if this is hernial sac, the narrowest point is deep inguinal ring. Here the constriction occurs, either obstruction, incarceration, irreducibility, strangulation. Indirect hernia, the narrowest point is superficial inguinal ring, because the herniation occurs through the posterior abdominal wall and comes out through the superficial ring into the scrotum. So in direct hernia, the narrowest point is external inguinal ring, depending upon the size, and in indirect hernia, the narrowest point is deep inguinal ring. Now, what happens? This strangulation as a complication of hernia is most commonly seen in indirect hernia. Most commonly seen in indirect hernia. Rare or extremely uncommon in direct hernia. The reason is the deep ring is a tight structure. It is a defect in the deeper layer, and from superficial portion it is being compressed. So again, because of external pressure, muscle tone, muscle power, it gives enforcement to the deep inguinal ring. And another point is, if you have read anatomy thoroughly, the deep ring is bounded by the inferior epigastric artery. Deep ring is bounded by inferior epigastric artery, one border. So if you suppose deep ring in the right side, I am taking you, this is right side of my deep ring. Deep ring here and superficial ring is here, because canal is oblique. And here it is deep ring of the right side. This is bounded by inferior epigastric artery medially, like this. Laterally, it is other anatomical layers. So medially, there is no place. The ring cannot expand medially or downwards. This is down. This is superficial ring, and this is deep ring. And here it is the canal. So because of this artery, inferior epigastric artery, this is very important component for the diagnosis, for the treatment, for the surgery. This inferior epigastric artery, very dangerous. It forms a boundary of the deep ring. So that's why strangulation is very common. And in superficial ring, it is all around, it is a facial plane, facial boundary. And below, it is pubic crest. So it is more easy to expand the superficial ring than the deep ring. The reason why I am telling you, the strangulation or necrosis or gangrene of the bowel is more common in indirect inguinal hernia than direct hernia. So treatment part, I think today we are not able to cover. So again, your CR and Sasi, Whenever you are free, you can arrange one more class uh, to further aspect of hernia. Now, I was in the clinical feature and diagnosis. Diagnosis much more or less, it is clinical. In doubtful cases where there is no swelling, you are not sure, not appreciable clearly, most EG and diagnostic investigation. What is the meaning of this diagnostic investigation? You cannot say confirmatory. The term diagnostic investigation and term is confirmatory investigation. Confirmatory investigation is only when you do the tissue diagnosis. This is the confirmatory, that this is a hernial sac and this is content. But diagnostic means by all practical purpose, the diagnosis is established. And this is ultrasonography. The ultrasonography will tell you whether it is hernia or lymph node or something else or tumor or anything else. So there is a list of differential diagnosis in S-class. All of you should remember, list of differential diagnosis of inguinal hernia. We can come to this point on later on in next class, differential diagnosis of hernial swelling. So this diagnosis can be established by ultrasonography. This is very easy. In difficult cases, or if there is doubt that patient might have some other associated disease in the nearby viscera or orbit. Hello? Yes? Audio ko mute karna hai, audio. Yes. In that case, you may require CT or MRI. Otherwise, routinely, you do not require CT and MRI. And most EG and diagnostic investigation is ultrasonography, where the diagnosis is established. Now, confirmation of the hernia can be done by herniography. What is this? This does not come into picture anywhere, either theory or practical, but this is for knowledge. You should know. If you are doing better in exam, examiner may ask you, tell me the confirmatory investigation of hernia. The confirmatory investigation is only herniography. What is this herniography? The radio-opaque water-soluble dye, radio-opaque dye, which is water-soluble, pushed into the peritoneal cavity in dilute form. And what happens in peritoneal cavity if the patient adopts upright posture? What will happen? This water or liquid has a tendency to travel down, and it will go and gravitate towards the hernial sac, most dependent part of the peritoneal cavity. And you just take the X-ray or screening of the patient. Because of this radio-opaque dye, one may get a clue that yes, this is the dye where there is a pouch of peritoneum and this is nothing but hernia. But this investigation, I have not seen, I have not heard. This is only a theoretical concept. This is about diagnosis of hernia. Next part is investigation and treatment. Clinical examination. Yes, clinical examination. So time is up now. So I'm trying to finish within 1 minute. One important clue. I'm just giving you hint. All of you must remember the examination part of hernia in clinical situation, ward posting, practical. There are many tests are mentioned in the book. Many tests. There are tests which are named after some scientists. But the most important, most commonly asked test and most informative test is ring occlusion test. Now, this ring occlusion test comes into the picture when you are doing palpation. So any swelling, remember, any swelling, the examination part starts from inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation. First you do inspection, then palpation. So during palpation, this test is done. Remember, all of you, It is very confusing, and many intelligent students, they are doing this blunder. This ring, all the tests, they comes into picture during palpation, not during history and examination, during palpation. And there are many tests, many types of tests where you can diagnose this is hernia, this is reducible, this is irreducible, this is incarcerated, this is strangulated. Now, this is the finishing line, most important line for you, because you have to appear in the exam. Your aim is, today, your aim is not towards to become a good surgeon, not to become a popular surgeon. Your aim is to pass into the exam. And this test must be done, which is most informative. Ring occlusion test. Ring occlusion test. This is most important. What is this ring occlusion test? Means this test is done to know whether the hernia is direct or indirect. This test is done to know only two things. One is whether it is direct hernia or indirect hernia. Otherwise, it has no role. Ring occlusion test. Here, you press the deep ring from the skin, gentle pressure. Gentle pressure. पता चला इतना जोर से दबा रहे हैं कि पेशेंट तो परेशान हो रहा है, वो सोच रहा है ये कहाँ फंस गए. Gentle pressure with the thumb. Gentle pressure with the thumb over the deep ring. And patient is asked to cough and just see the cough impulse. This is the test, and this test has a role just to know whether the hernia is direct or indirect. Now, question is, why you want to know whether the hernia is direct or indirect? Why? Yes, anatomically it is different. Indirect hernia comes out through the deep ring. Direct hernia comes out through the superficial ring. I have also told you strangulation and complications are more common in indirect hernia. Strangulation and other complications are less common in direct hernia. Or kya? Why you want to know? Anything else? Yes? No. Because treatment is same. Whether the hernia is direct or the indirect, treatment is same. What is the same? Only surgical repair. So till today, there is no other treatment of hernia. Curative, I am talking about curative treatment. Otherwise, various options have been described in the book. There are physiotherapeutic exercise or hernia truss. Hernia truss is nothing but a firm ball pressed over the deep inguinal ring, and it is fixed by a belt. And whenever patient moves, this ball compresses the deep inguinal ring, and hernia swelling does not comes out. This is truss. So till today, the only treatment of hernia is surgical repair. There is no other treatment. So if there is surgical repair, why you want to know the direct hai, indirect hai? Yes, because it has been described in the book. Yes? Chances. When you will prefer surgery? When you will prefer? Because most of the patients are asymptomatic, painless swelling. So when surgery should be done? Again, the point of concern is, if the patient has indirect hernia, the surgical treatment as early as possible. Emergency surgery is indicated only when the hernia is irreducible, obstructed, or strangulated. If it is not, swelling is reducible, still the indirect hernia, the surgical repair should be done as early as possible, because any time, any day, the hernial swelling may develop strangulation. While if the hernia swelling is direct, absolutely no risk of strangulation. Extremely rare. Strangulation and complication are more common in indirect, much less common in direct. So if the patient develops symptoms, if the patient desires surgery, no risk, then surgery should be done. But practically, hernia and hydrocele is a bread and butter of the surgeon. Bread and butter. So if hernia, we know only treatment is surgery. So most of the surgeon, most of the cases, the surgeon advised surgical repair. But practically, direct hernia, minimum risk. Indirect hernia, maximum risk. So again, Sasi, attendance